Welcome to Quest for Calm with Cain Carroll. Cain, do you want to say hi so people can see you?
Hi, everybody.
Um, Thank you for Cain for being here. And also we have Josefa Rangel here, Dr. Josefa Rangel, who is the doctor I went to for my physical issues that connected me to Cain. Josefa, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
There's Josefa, who is a amazing doctor, a Stanford internist who has had, we're actually going to send you guys links. I did a profile on Josefa early on when we started Quest for Eternal Sunshine, and you can read about her journey. And she's just this incredibly forward-thinking, open-minded, spiritual person and doctor who actually apprenticed herself to Cain Carroll, who is a master teacher and synthesizer of ancient healing arts. And the reason why we are doing this today is that I went to Josefa originally for physical issues that I had gone to over 19 different medical professionals for. And she really felt that my issue, actually, Josefa, since you're there, why don't you say why you felt that working with Cain was going to be the right solution for me? Or do you want me to talk? I'll talk.
Excuse me. No, I just, everything that I know from conventional and integrative medicine and all the doctors you had been to, all the providers, all the things you tried, like I just knew your body was trying to communicate something. Like I believed in your bodily wisdom, and I knew I was limited, but what I had learned in medicine, and I had the sense that you could benefit from Cain's knowledge base of ancient self-healing.
So to give you guys, thank you. To give you just a very quick background on me, in terms of these issues, is I don't know how many people get my newsletter, are aware, have read Quest for Eternal Sunshine, which is a book I co-wrote with my father. Both my parents were Holocaust survivors, and so I grew up in an atmosphere of low-grade terror, of depression, of repression. And my sister is here too. Thanks, Ruthie, for joining. It's interesting because we both felt like we were the only ones really afraid growing up. We grew up in an area in Brooklyn where there was this nice little neighborhood of family homes surrounded really by a ghetto, and there were a lot of break-ins, and both of us went to sleep every night terrified. And we took 3 different buses or multiple trains to our school, which was in a bad neighborhood. So we kind of both, I think we had, there was this fear from the time we were really young. And then we had a very interesting childhood. We grew up in an alternative spiritual community. And that's a whole long story, but it ended very abruptly and very traumatically. And when I was a teenager and we moved to Manhattan, and my mom got very depressed again after we left, and I went to college at 16. And early on, when I arrived to the University of Vermont, I actually had a bad trip on peyote, a very traumatic bad trip. And I was starting to take courses on the Holocaust, and I had never really come to terms with the Holocaust. And I started having incredible anxiety attacks to the point where I really couldn't function for a while. And so that was actually, it was interesting because after that, I kind of developed a little more of a bonded relationship with myself. I started having to take better care of myself because I knew how sensitive I was and how quickly I could default to anxiety. But then I was 19 as a senior in college. At 20 years old, my husband Drew and I moved on to this little 2-acre farm, and within 10 years, we became the largest grower of organic produce in the world, Earthbound Farm. We were the first to package salads, and we had kids, and my life basically went, into 5th year overdrive for 30 straight years. And and Earthbound was a wild ride. There were amazing experiences. There were traumatic experiences, but I didn't have time to process any of them. I literally worked nonstop. And when I was 50, our business was 30 years old. We sold our business, and my health just completely fell apart. And I started searching for solutions, and I actually hired a famous doctor who is kind of a, you know, someone who is looks for, you know, solutions to hard to diagnose diseases, and he's the one that sent me to Josefa for mast cell testing, and that's when she introduced me to Cain. So what I want to share, and what I've said with Cain and Josefa, was my health issues brought me to them, but they are the first people that I didn't understand the connection between my nervous system and my physical health. I didn't understand the fact that I actually, at 45 years old, I had worked with a healer once, and afterwards, I felt my first moment where I realized it was my first moment on earth where I didn't feel terror. I mean, I have living either in high terror or low terror until that point. And so working with Cain and Josefa and learning these techniques to care for myself and calm my nervous system has made me feel, once I cried to them and I said, I feel like I would have wasted this lifetime if I hadn't found you guys. That's how grateful I have felt for their work. And I think the analogy I was thinking of was, I feel like before, and I want to say that they're not the only people like that, you know, as I started researching trauma healing, there are a lot of techniques out there to calm your nervous system, to be more embodied, to learn how to handle your feelings. But even with my research and all the workshops I've taken and all the courses I've taken, I still come back to their work because it integrates the emotion and the physical. And the exercises that Cain has taught me, they not only calm my nervous system, they feel wonderful, but they also really help stimulate my own self-healing mechanisms. And so I find that a lot of the therapists that have different somatic techniques, they don't have that component. And so I still feel, especially for me, with the health and the emotional issues. So before I turn it off to Cain, I just want to share the analogy that came to me this morning. And that is, before I started working with Cain and Josefa, it was like I was this little sailboat on the big ocean. And when the storms came, I didn't know, you know, we're born into this world without an owner's manual. You know, I was in the ocean in this little boat, and I didn't know what to do. And I was tossed, and I was trying not to fall off, and it was overwhelming. And even when the storm was over, I was just so afraid of the next storm because I knew I couldn't handle the storm. So I was constantly in this state of fear. And I feel like what I got are techniques on how to sail the wild oceans, and then I can enjoy the calm. And when the waves are a little bigger, I can go, ooh, this is kind of fun, because I know I have some confidence that I know how to do this. And so there are two components, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cain. I think the first component is that I always ran from my uncomfortable feelings. I always ran from my fear. I always ran from my anxiety. And that keeps your nervous system revved up when you're running. And I was stuck in that. And what their work has done for me is learning how to feel my emotions and how to stay with my emotions. And it gets so much easier over time. And then there's also the physical. If for those of you who have already experimented, have gone over to our Quest for Calm page, all of these different physical ways that we can use to calm and soothe our nervous system. I think before, okay, the reason why I picked this song, for those of you who are here, it was Don't Worry About a Thing, Every Little Thing's Gonna Be All Right, that Bob Marley song, Three Little Birds. And I never could feel like everything was going to be all right in my body, because my mind knew that wasn't true. Everything is not going to be all right. This is a very uncertain world, and bad things happen all the time. And so I was always on that hyper vigilant state. And what I've learned is that I can and I need to learn to that feeling inside me that everything is okay right at this moment. And so that my new set point is calm, and my nervous system is soothed and settled. So I am, in the beginning of this journey. I've been working with them for a couple of years, but I think that I am at the I don't know if I'm at the height of my appreciation and enthusiasm, but as so many of us are dealing with added stress during COVID, and just being humans in this world, I just really feel so fortunate that I have had the opportunity and the resources to work with Cain and Josefa, and I've wanted to share that with other people who can benefit. And so on our site, we have, and we'll send you all the links. We have 12 short exercises that Cain has created, and then Cain's going to also make 2 custom videos for all of you. We'll have a Q&A, and you can ask me questions. I'm guessing Josefa would be open to answering questions. She's nodding. And Cain questions from 11 to 11:30. And now I'll turn it over to Cain. And Cain, I might interrupt you here or there, but it's handing over to you.
Okay. Yeah, so the point that you brought that is about not running is our starting place for all of us. There's a moment when we realize that there's the discomfort we call the discomfort in and of itself of whatever it is that's going on in our life that is difficult. That could be physical pain, emotional pain, situational difficulty, uncertainty. So that's what I call the primary experience. So we have the primary experience, and then we have the whole cascade of what could happen in response to that. That could either double, triple, quadruple the impact of that experience. And so one of the things that increases the intensity of the experience and causes a whole expansion of the difficulty is when we run from it, is when we avoid it. And the tricky thing is that running is part of our onboard nervous system capacity for dealing with extreme trauma in the moment. And so there's nothing wrong with that system in terms of in the moment emergency. If the building is on fire, your nervous system will shut down certain aspects of your ability to sense and feel sensation, so you can grab people out of the burning building and not feel the pain that's involved with getting burned or getting hit by falling bricks or something. And so what happens is that this system gets clicked on, and then it stays in somewhat of an on position. And it's not, literally like black and white on or off. It's like a slider, but a certain aspect of our emergency response system, our sympathetic nervous system, gets slid into the on position, and we feel like one of the options is we feel like we're always like running away from that pain or difficulty. On the flip side, we have numbing, right? So for some other people, they might feel that the response is to be in what, many of our clients and patients describe as the gray zone. And that's more like the depressive state where can't feel a lot. There's a sense of thickness or heaviness. That's also an indication that we can get stuck in that pattern where we're not actually feeling everything that is there going on in our body mind. And then there's numerous responses in the middle. They're mostly variations of being irritated and wanting to fight all the time, or appeasing situations and feeling like we don't have a lot of agency or personal power to rudder our own ship, to build on Myra's analogy. So we have this kind of running, we have this kind of like freezing and retreating, and then we have this like wanting to fight, and then we have this sense of like trying to appease the situation. And for most of us, we're going to utilize parts of all of those in our strategies to survive, and those are all evolved aspects of our nervous system's intelligence. And so we can't start with a sense of rejection or sense of judgment around those. Otherwise, we're just gonna fall down the hole, right? So we have to start where we are, and starting where we are begins with acknowledging what our experience is like. And so I'd like to invite us actually to experience that together, with a little bit of a different view and a little bit of a different framework for the starting point. So, in a moment or so, I'll invite us to drop in and do a meditative practice together. But I want to explain a little bit because I'm imagining many of you have some experience already with meditative practices. And I want to make sure that we enter with a particular viewpoint and leave our assumptions and biases with our shoes at the entryway of the meditation hall and enter in a way with some freshness. So, what I want to say is that as we enter into a couple of moments of quietude, we're not attempting to create a particular state at this step. We're not actually trying to make ourselves calm or make ourselves feel settled quite yet. We're not introducing techniques to cultivate those particular states. What we're actually doing is opening to our experience right now, we call unmodified. What does our unmodified experience actually feel like? Can we acknowledge that and be present with it as it is? And then start to invite all of the intelligence of the body mind to start to come online and perceive our relative safety and get into a sense of being centered. And then as our hour moves forward, we'll do some other techniques that we can actually help the nervous system move into the parasympathetic, the rest and rejuvenate state. But we can't like quantum leap there, or we just bypass our experience, and then it'll come up again later. Okay, so it's really actually through intimate engagement with what we're feeling at the level of emotion, sensation, what we're experiencing at the level of thought, that gives us contact with the full intelligence of our body mind. And then we can do tremendous depth of work to actually retrain and repattern and reset our baseline, like Myra was talking about, to be more calm and settled more of the time, but we're not bypassing our immediate experience. Okay, so that's the invitation. Let's do it with our eyes closed. So let the eyes fall closed so we can let ourselves be more in our internal experience for a couple of moments. So you don't need to look at the screen. And if you do want to turn off your video so that you don't have the sense that any of us are looking at you, you can do that. I'll keep mine on, of course, so you can see me. So let the eyes fall closed and bring the light of your attention inside your body. Return the spiritual light of your attention, of your awareness, to the interior space of your body. And just enough of your attention is there to pick up my voice. And the rest of your attention is looking within and listening within and sensing within your body. Feel the contact points of your feet with the earth. Feel the contact points of your seat with your chair. And allow yourself to be open to fully feel what it's like inside the experience you're having right now. Notice what kind of physical sensate experience is there. Feeling the body from the top of the head to the bottoms of the feet. Feeling the body as you're sensing. Feeling. Instrument of awareness. So it's through this embodied sense that you're able to feel, register sensation, emotion, thoughts. Whatever it is that the immediate experience is like, whatever the texture of your experience is like, let it rest in its unmodified essence, exactly the way it is. Let it be just like that. And if this immediate experience, sensing physical sensation, feeling emotion, noticing thought, hearing my voice, if the total experience were like a person, imagine to this person you have some orientation that would communicate, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. And in this way, be intimate, immediately present with your own direct experience exactly as it is. There might be some thought forms that say, yeah, but it doesn't feel comfortable. And let it be okay. If it doesn't feel comfortable, that's okay. If it feels pleasant and comfortable, that's great. If there's some numbness, that's okay. Whatever the experience is like, see if you can stay with the whole of it from the bottoms of your feet to the top of your head, from the skin to the bone, feeling everything that arises. And notice that you do have the capacity to remain present, intimate with the experience moment by moment. That power is yours. Stay with this for one more moment and notice the quality of openness. Notice how your attention, your awareness allows for these experiences, sensations you feel in the body, thought forms, emotions. Notice how your attention has an open quality that allows all of these aspects of experience to simply arise and be exactly as they are. And let this open quality of your experience be wide open, clear and spacious like the sky. If there's some place in your body or some place in your heart as emotion that feels intensified, notice how much space there is around it. In other words, give room to your experience. Stay with it for one more moment. And as you've established this quality of spaciousness within your experience, smile to whatever it is that is showing up, whatever sensation, whatever emotion, whatever types of thought forms. Smile to them like you would smile at a person, like you would smile looking into the eyes of a newborn baby. And notice what it feels like if you allow the experience room, spaciousness to be exactly as it is. And you smile to it, kind, warm, smiling, no matter what it's like, if it's pleasant or unpleasant, if it's neutral, if it's numb, if it's subtle or intense. feeling the body from the bottoms of the feet to the top of the head, to the contact points of your seat with your chair. So maintain the sense of somatic awareness, feeling with the body. And as you maintain that, very slowly begin to open your eyes. Very slowly. So at first you just see a sliver of light and you start to become aware of the objects you can see in the room. And as you're doing that, notice that you can still sense the inside of your body. You can still feel your feet on the ground, your seat in the chair. Let the eyes continue to open all the way. And just rest like that now with your eyes open. You can see the screen and see whatever it is that is in the space where you are seated. And stay like that with your eyes open. And your eyes will naturally show you the images of what is in the room, but focus on the inside of your body. Try to stay still if you can. Focus on the inside of your body and feel what it feels like inside your body. You still have this sense of openness. You still have the sense of smiling, being kind to whatever it is that you feel at the level of sensation and emotion. And at the same time, you can see where you are in space. And then let your hands come up and do something. Maybe you just put your hair back, or so move your body, or drink a sip of your tea, or do something. So, but maintain this internal awareness while you do that. So you're still feeling and sensing. You could stretch. The reason this is important is that as we go into some of the next parts where we use self-touch and do a little movement, maybe do a little sound, is that your awareness is now internal, and external at the same time. And the reason this is important is because if we don't make that that seamless, we can easily use meditative and soothing techniques as a kind of like vacation place that we use to run away from our actual life and our actual experience. And often, that's what happens with techniques and methods. And it's not actually helpful to do that, because we can then use meditation and yoga and self-massage and anything really as a kind of avoidance strategy. You know, it's called bypassing, the technical term, right? You may have heard spiritual bypassing. So it's really pretty easy to avoid doing that by how we went into the meditative practice. Slowly close your eyes and return that awareness, spiritual light inside the body. And then very slowly open your eyes, still maintaining internal awareness, including your external environment, and then do stuff. So as you move through your day, you integrate your periods of meditative self-care, soothing, settling practices with the mundane activities of your life. So there's not this and that. Things start to flow together into one cohesive day. And this is the key. I'm telling you, you can do 3 hours a day of yoga and spend the rest of the time being frazzled and disembodied. And you just undo those 3 hours like that with one commute in traffic or one Zoom call with your boss that annoys you, right? And again, like, we don't judge ourselves for that, because again, we have this aspect of our nervous system that will sort of dissociate to protect us. But the tally of tension and stress is registered by the body, and you can't trick the body. The body registers and stores whatever our experience is actually like until it's met with full presence, and then it self-resolves. Let me say that again. Every experience that you have is registered by the animal. Yes, we are an animal, by this biological organism, right? The animal body. It's registered, and it ought to be, because this is where our life is happening, right? We're feeling everything. if we actually are able to feel it and fully allow it to complete, we don't have to drag it forward with us. If we disconnect or remain sort of frazzled and disconnected a lot of the time, and we're not actually fully feeling, the body builds up a kind of backlog of incomplete emotional, psychological, spiritual, physiological experiences that sort of weigh on us. So our practices of soothing and self-care are twofold. One, the immediate entry is like, man, I feel really stressed, it's an intense moment, we're all in the soup together, right? We just had an election, we have a pandemic, it's the holiday season, right? So everyone feels some element of all of that. So we want to feel a little more calm, soothed, and settled. That's okay, that's the immediate need. But our long-term need is to find a way of living in our body, in our life, where things can process more immediately, and we don't drag around last Tuesday with us for 47 more Tuesdays, because that's really hard on our body and mind. Okay, so you can apply this piece, these two pieces I wanted to introduce first, because you can apply them to any existing practices that you do or anything else you learn with anybody else. There's myriad ways of going about this. The things we're talking about today are things that Myra has found to be really helpful. So kind of keeping it around those pieces, but use this idea of entry and exit with any practice that you're using, and then work to integrate it with everything else going on in your life, and the value just expands indefinitely, right? So maybe I'll pause for a moment and see if Myra, do you have anything you want to add or ask about that before I introduce some of the four techniques?
No, I think that's really great, and I need to do more of that. So it's really nice to hear you say that. And actually, I'll use this opportunity. When this is over and people, you know, we're open, Cain and I, and we haven't talked to the staff about it, but we're really open to doing just a little series, like a little sort of beginner principles class, like maybe 2 or 3 classes, if people, free of course, if people are interested, because I'm just seeing how much benefit I have from hearing this stuff again, and how I can really do more of what you're saying, of that integration. And I'm still, I think one of the symptoms that I had of my intergenerational trauma, my nervous system, was I never felt here. I used to just always feel anxiety around not feeling in my body on the planet. And that was why I said I was so grateful that through working with you guys, I'm starting to feel more embodied. And I think part of it was I was too afraid to be embodied, So anyway, so I think this is very important for me to hear. I just want to thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
And then the one thing too that I want to make sure you talk a little bit about, Cain, is that and I think you did, but that what really helped me when we first started working together was the practice of spending time every day, in my body, my hollow body, welcoming, embracing, sort of loving whatever emotion I was feeling, and kind of this tenderness that a mother shows to their baby. So, you hurt yourself, the baby cries, their finger hurts, you don't say, hit them, stop crying. I mean, you can, but they're going to cry harder. If you hold them and comfort them, they have their pain, but the experience isn't so awful because they're being held and comforted. And so I think one of the things that I developed with you was this sense of, the anxiety and the fear that I used to run from. Now it's like, okay, come here, we're okay, and some of the help with that are the physical practices. I guess this is a nice lead in, that
Yeah.
a lot of what I do is it's not just in my mind. And I think that's what sets you apart from a lot of these other somatic practices, is that they're in my body.
Right.
Okay, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so there's 4 ways that we've talked about to apply this in this series. So the first one we'll play with is touch. They're all entry points, and each of you individuals is going to find ways that are most immediately accessible, and it can change by the day, it can change in different phases in your life. So the invitation is just to really play with them. We're not presenting like a right way, as a kind of like a cookie cutter way. These are just ways of accessing at any given moment that we invite you to play with. Touch is sometimes the most immediate, right? Like imagine that a child is having a really hard time and you're standing across the room and you're like, sweetie, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And those words as sound waves, they have a lot of power. But if you walk over and put your hand with your mind, your heart mind in your hand and convey calm, safety, and centered through your hand, it's immediate. It's pre-verbal. It doesn't matter what language that child understands. The language of touch with that quality of calm and care is immediate. And so when in doubt, touch might be your go-to because you create this loop back in toward yourself. So the image that Myra is talking about is a central component of my work, where at some point, I had many injuries and many health conditions since the time I was a kid. Injuries from being a martial artist and health conditions that were just congenital. So I struggled with my physical health a ton. And I realized at some point in my healing journey that the cells, it was in meditation, because the cells are constantly being born and dividing, they're basically babies all the time. The new cells that are being born are children because they're just divided and now you have a new cell. Well, that cell is a baby. And so, and our cells, we know, they only live about 7 years and then the whole body is regenerated within that 7-year period, right? And they're all, of course, they're not all being born and dying at the same time. But as a metaphor, I thought my body is really only ever like a 7-year-old. Well, how would I treat a 7-year-old if they were cold, hungry, sad, scared, depressed, hurt? Like, I wouldn't be harsh with them. I wouldn't. So I started thinking, okay, I need to hold this body mind like a child. And that really changed everything in how you can approach your emotions, sensations, thoughts, dreams, memories, and needs. So when we practice self-touch, the hand that's doing the touching is like the parent. The parent is the one who has a wider view of the world and understands what needs to be conveyed. So this hand is the giver. And this body part that's going to be touched is the receiver. So parent, child. So what happens is you make a loop within your own system of self-care, and you get to reparent your own body mind. If a caretaker or the world was harsh with you at some point or at numerous points in your life, you now get to create a completely different environment by your own practice of self-touch. So let's do this practice, simple practice of self-touch with our arms. I'm going to back up a little bit so you guys can see me. So go ahead and put, actually, let's sensitize the hands first. Bring your hands together and create a little bit of heat and a little bit of sensitivity in your hands. And then hold them together and close your eyes for a second and feel that warmth and that tingling and that vibration between your hands. And put your heart in your hands. That means bring kindness into the way you're touching your palms together. And then turn your right palm up and bring your left hand to the inside of your arm. And you're going to touch down the inside of your arm slowly with a kind of light, sensitive touch until you get to the fingertips. Wrap your hand around the fingertips and hold like that and squeeze a little bit. And then turn your palm down and you're going to come up the back of your hand, over your arm and your elbow and your shoulder. Palm goes up and you go down the inside. So the first few rounds, if this is new for you, just get used to the idea that your giving hand is generating a kind of deliberate way of touching that communicates calm and kindness and convey that everything's okay with this touch. And the receiving arm has a sense of openness and willingness to feel those qualities of presence through the touch. So you're the giver and the receiver. Your giving hand is like the parent, and your receiving arm is like the child. And this kindness it's pure. It's just pure, unconditional kindness, quality of love and safety that you're communicating into your body. Let's do one more round. Down the inside and up the outside. Good. Let's rub the hands together and we'll make a little bit more warmth. And let's do the other arm. So you come to the inside and you flow down nice and slow. We're doing it extra slow and juicy today. Squeeze a little bit the fingertips. It's like you're like holding a child's hand, like it's gonna be okay. And then you come up the outside. And down the inside. And up the outside. And I like to use my eyes and look where my hand is. That's where my awareness is. And I'm smiling with my mouth and with my eyes, and I'm smiling through my hand. And we can do this even if we start out feeling really anxious and really unsettled. The movement, slow and deliberate, the smile, the sense of receiving and giving, very quickly tells the nervous system, hey, everything is actually okay right now. If there were actually an emergency and you needed to run, you wouldn't move this slow. You'd get up and run away, right? So the movement, the quality of movement tells the intelligence of your body that everything's fine right now. One more round. And back up. And relax in the arms. See how that feels in your body. You can close your eyes for a moment. Notice how the arms feel. Notice how your chest feels. You might feel your heart rate, checking in with how that feels in your chest. Notice what it feels like to be the recipient, to be able to receive gentle touch that has a pure, loving intention. The touch isn't looking for anything in return. It doesn't have some kind of strategy. It's simply giving for the sake of being kind. And also notice what it feels like to reclaim that power in you to actually generate kindness and touch and to actually affect the organism through this simple act. But you have that power, that agency. Notice what that feels like. Okay, good. Stay somewhat in that state. Let the eyes open. Keep your attention internal. We'll use a little bit of sound now. The sound is a humming kind of sound. So it with an open mouth, it sounds like hum, hum. So make that sound a couple of times. Hum. It would be like H-U-N-G or H-O-N-G if we were to write it in English. Hmm. And now try that sound with your mouth closed. Hmm. Hmm. Good. Just get into a rhythm with that, breathing in through the nose And then as you make the home sounds, notice the vibrations go from your mouth down your throat, down your chest, through your solar plexus, down past your navel, into your lower belly. And you might even feel them all the way into your pelvis or your sitting bones. But as you're making the sound, imagine it's like a wave of sound going from your mouth, sinus, head area down into your belly. And see if you can register with your body, with your physical sensing, register the quality of vibration as it goes down into your belly. You can change the pitch of the sound. It could be like a little bit higher pitch. It could be a deeper pitch. So play with the quality of the sound so that the quality of the sound feels most soothing for you. As you continue like this, add elements of the first practice, which are smiling internal awareness. So imagine that your smiling attention follows the sound waves through your body as you sense them with your body. And the end of the sound finishes with a vibration inside your belly, and you're smiling to that area of your body deep inside of your belly where the vibrations finish. Let's do a couple more rounds. On the last round, let the volume go really low volume so you can barely hear it, but you can still feel it quite vividly with your body. And now let your attention rest along that whole line from your mouth all the way down your front body into your belly. And then let your attention rest inside of your belly. Feel as if your awareness is like a little ball of light that's nestled into your belly and it's just hanging out there. And the sense here is like the feeling of a well-swaddled baby in a totally safe environment, nestled into a warm crib. So your awareness is resting in your lower belly, in the center of that pool of warmth. Good. Stay in that internal awareness. So see if you can, as you slowly open your eyes, practice this again. Keep some part of your attention in your belly so you can still sense the inner part of your belly. If you lose contact with it, go to your sitting bones and notice the feeling of the chair against your sitting bones, and then move the attention up from there into your belly. So see if you can open your eyes. Maintain internal somatic awareness, feeling the body. Good, so we're gonna build one more layer on top now. We're gonna use breath, another one of the techniques for soothing and settling. So the breath is gonna be in through the nose, down into that space, touching the belly with your awareness and your breath. And then we're gonna let the mouth be soft And with a silent ha sound, silent means subvocal, right? So I'm not going to say ha, vocal cords won't resonate, but I will say something between like HA and like HU. So it's kind of like huh, kind of like ha. So try it first with the eyes open, breathing in, feel the breath descend down, touch the belly, and then let it out with. And as your attention gets pulled more internal, just let the eyelids start to close. And you can still have a sense of the space around you, but your awareness goes more internal, in breath through the nose. Your attention touches the belly. And then there's a kind of smile on your face as you let the sound out. And you notice the sound fades into silence. Notice that moment when the sound fades into silence. And then you begin to breathe in again. And then the sound begins. As it fades into silence, smile it into silence. Watch the sound and the breath fade into silence and smile with them as they disappear into this big spaciousness, this big, I don't know where they go space. And then again, breathe in. Continue that way and now customize. Make the breathing pattern feel very comfortable for you. Only breathe in as long as it's easy. Don't try to breathe too deep. Breathe in, inhale until it feels it's complete. Exhale the sound with the right volume, the right pitch that feels most settling for you. Let your experience dictate the adjustments. Don't try to do it exactly like me. Don't look for the right way outside of your experience. Let your body dictate the way of doing this that feels most delicious for you. And the quality of this ha is like the sound that would naturally come out of you if you're like sinking into a hot spring, sinking into the most comfortable chair you've ever sat in with the warm blanket over you. It's this sound of relaxed internal sensation of pleasant ease. Let's do one more round. As you finish that last round, let them lips close. Rest the tongue on the upper palate behind the upper tooth ridge lightly. And notice the after effect. Notice the feeling from the belly to the mouth, from the mouth to the belly. And also notice the quality inside your mouth. Notice the wetness of the inside of the mouth, the relative wetness or dryness of the inside of the mouth. This is an indication of our state, where our nervous system is. As we get more soothed and settled, the mouth has more saliva. When we feel more anxious, the mouth gets more dry. Noticing what the mouth feels like right now. As you get really settled, the mouth will produce a lot of saliva and of course swallow that saliva. That's a good indication that your nervous system is dropping into parasympathetic, rest and renew. Keep your internal awareness and let the eyes open slowly. And we'll add one last dimension to the practice today, which is movement. So the quality of our movement, when it's slow and round and thick, expresses a state of relaxation. When it's angular, quick, and staccato, that's how we move when we feel afraid and when there's something in our environment that we're trying to run away from or fight with. Right? In other words, if you watch me move, if I move like this, for example, you know that there's not a saber-toothed tiger in my living room, right? I wouldn't probably be doing that if there was something to really be afraid of, right? But if I start moving like this, you might think that there's something that I'm afraid of that I need to react quickly to. So in this way, your movement tells your nervous system, I'm good. Okay, so let's move in a way that is very round, slow, and smooth. So the movement is going to be like this. Your hands are coming out in front of you. You're going to move your hands toward your body as if you're compressing the air from in front of you into your chest, into your lungs and your heart. And you're giving yourself like a chi hug. And then you open your arms slowly out to the sides like wings. And you reach your palms forward, you lean forward a little bit. And it's like you're gathering more of that juicy stuff, that good stuff, this prana, this chi, and you're pulling it into your body. You're doing it with a smile. And imagine that it soaks into your chest and your heart and your shoulders. Your shoulders are relaxed and you move out, forward, and in toward your body. Let your elbows drop so your shoulders can be relaxed. And your hands can be really at any altitude. If doing this, you feel your shoulders get a little tired, bring your hands down at a lower altitude toward your belly. So a little bit more. For some people, it might feel like your shoulders tense up when you're up here. No problem. Let your arms just drop down to the level that feels easy on your shoulders. Keep it easy. From the side, this movement is like this. A little bit forward, a little bit back. A little bit forward, a little bit back. And imagine that you're in water and you can feel the thickness of the air. We say fish swim in water and humans swim in this vast field of vital energy, of aliveness that's all around you. Feel yourself relating to that, and you're moving in a way that is smooth, slow, and thick. Thick means that you can feel the air, right? So you're not breaking through the air with your arms, you're pushing the air out of the way. And you're feeling the air with your palms, with your arms. Let's do a couple more rounds. Again, if the shoulders get at all tired, just go lower elevation in front of your belly. And just imagine, playfully, like a child, imagine that you're just gathering this like sparkling brightness from the air. You could think of that as oxygen or energy, and you're welcoming it into your body. One more round. And then rest your hands over your lower belly. Close the eyes. Notice the echo effect of the exercise. And imagine that that movement, that gathering movement, has welcomed this nourishment into your body, and that your body is smiling, like a well-nourished child, nourished with good food, nourished with warmth in a safe environment, and nourished with touch. So your hands rest against your belly, and you're holding that child of your own body down deep at the center below your navel, and you're feeling that sense of connection. And now to finish, notice the quality of the saliva inside your mouth. Whatever it's like, it's just fine. Gather the saliva that's in your mouth and swallow. Feel yourself centered inside your body, inside your belly. Feel your feet against the ground. Feel your seat against the chair. Feel your internal awareness is centered inside your belly. And now slowly opening the eyes. Integrating your inner self-care practice with external awareness of the space. And you can release the hands. Okay. Nice, you guys. If you can stick around for a little bit, we'll have a Q&A period. And please do feel free to ask any questions you'd like to know about how this stuff could help with your personal situation or general theory questions, really anything. And Myra and Dr. Rangel and I will hang out. Sometimes I know you might want to ask a question that maybe feels personal. You could ask it in the chat. Yeah, so I just welcome questions that even when they do feel personal, there's an element of our connection with each other is such that you ask a question, it's almost always relevant for numerous other people and can be really helpful for all of us. So really do welcome those questions, even if they are challenging ones to ask. Is this a practice you do and suggest to be done every day? Yes. So I practice these elements of these four every day. I do it first thing in the morning. It has become part of my daily routine for many years. I grew up. My mother was teaching meditation when I was a teenager. I started going to Japanese Cultural Center and learning these things. So I had somewhat of a culture of understanding the idea of practice growing up, and maybe some of you had that in your cultures as well. So I was lucky in a way. In American culture, there's not so much of a tradition of meditative or self-care practices as there is, in other places I've lived in the world, India, Nepal, and traveled. But you can make it a part of your own culture. So the two easiest places to put that are in the space and time before your day gets going, before you have to be on or be anyone for anyone else, like your kids or your partner or your employees or whatnot. So waking up and practicing for some period of time before your day gets going is a golden moment. And that could be like 5 minutes. You could just sit and do the meditative practice we did. You could just sit and do the sound practice. You could sit and do the breathing practice. You could put them all together. What I'm going to try to do with the videos is kind of show you a way that you could combine the practices into two small sets. So you could draw upon those as the impetus for your personal practice if it's new for you. But the key here is every day, right? So I take the sun as my sort of inspiration for like continuity. Every day the sun rises, always in the east, and it always rises in the morning. And so I think, you know what, continuity is one of these aspects of nature that is just It's like the drum beat that keeps everything flowing, you know? So if I miss a couple of days, I just don't feel as centered and grounded and aligned, you know? So a little bit of practice every day is worth much more than going, you know, to a studio and doing like an hour and a half, you know, big yoga set. I'd rather you do 10 minutes 7 days a week than an hour and a half 1 day a week. And I'd also rather you do it like as a part of your own life. Like classes are awesome, and I always recommend people go to classes because that's where you learn and get community support. But when you when you do it in your own space, it integrates into your daily life and it sticks with you in a way that builds up slowly, slowly over weeks and months and really changes the way you respond to your environment. You really can reprogram and repattern your nervous system and the way your body responds.
Kate,
So,
can I say something that relates to that
yeah.
too? And I mean, you can correct me or add on, but you know, at what not that long ago you were telling me that we were talking about politics or something, and you said, you know, the most important thing is, and I don't know if you meant this literally, is how you get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And I realized for me, with this habitual, always rushing, right? I mean, if people have been reading my writing, it's all about how I'm trying to slow down. And, you know, and I have 2 dogs, they get up and they're excited for their walk. But since you've said that, and I'm asking, this is a question actually for me, does this count as practice? Because this is, so what I do now is I don't let my dogs rush me. I get out of bed. I go, okay, when I get out of bed, I'm going to feel myself lifting my covers. I'm going to be aware of my breath. I'm going to be aware of when my feet hit the ground. I'll be aware of petting the dogs. I'll go to the bathroom. I'll rub my back a little, you know, do some of my hip rolls that you've taught me. And so I'm not, you know, sitting there meditating, but I'm doing it as part of my life. And then when I walk the dogs, you know, I'll sometimes do some of your, you know, some of the humming, some of the, now I have to walk them on leashes because they're post surgery, but you know, I used to be able to do a lot of the touch when I walk, but I kind of integrate it. And I know when I do more, I'll say formal practice where I'm alone and I'm doing it, that feels, well, this is one thing that I want to share is that one of the things that I've been pondering, and Katie Ducher, our webmaster, who's been is on the call, and if people are interested in following along, Katie did all 12 of Cain's practices, and she's a mindfulness meditation teacher, and she shared her experience. And so if people are intrigued by this event and they want to try our 12 exercises, they might want to follow along with Katie, and we'll send you all of those links. But oh my God, I lost my train of thought when I remembered Katie was on the call.
Well, yeah. So what you shared is a great way of integrating. So we could classify practice to kind of um, pick up on the other question. It's like, yes, practice every day. We have formal practice, which would be like, I'm not doing anything else except practicing my self-touch. Like my phone is off. I'm not doing it while I'm doing something else. That would be formal practice. And I recommend some little bit of that every day if you can. And then there's integrated practice, which is like, you're going to do this thing anyway, like get out of bed. Well, getting out of bed can become a practice, right? The way that you start your day, from choosing what your alarm is going to sound like, right? So like I choose an alarm that is very calming, very relaxing. It still wakes me up, but it's like waking up like this versus, you know, so like don't have an alarm that jars you out of bed, because now your first experience of being awake is now you're frazzled, right? And you throw the covers off, jump out of bed, slam coffee, and like your nervous system's already ramping up. So what Myra's talking about is like, yeah, so, okay, now I'm awake. Just noticing your eyes are asleep, your eyes are closed. I'm awake, opening my eyes. So now you're starting to integrate this aspect of our practice that we just did. Now I'm awake. I see myself in the room. Do some movement. Covers peel off. I roll out of bed slowly and then stand there for a second. I feel myself standing on the ground. Now I'm upright. Now I'm awake. Right? Don't turn like all the lights on in your room so it's like shocking to you. Have like figure out your lamp if you're waking up before it's fully light. Figure out your lamp so that it's also calming, right? And then you've already set the tone for your day. And then maybe you don't do any formal practice, but just that process of how you got out of bed and woke your body up a little bit is already setting the tone for the day. And then maybe later in the day, in the afternoon, you take a little break and you do some of the, you could say formal movement or breathing or something for a few minutes. So in this way, it starts to weave. And really the ultimate goal with all of this is that it just becomes the way that you move through your day, right? You've actually transformed the way that you perhaps used to go through and do things into a way of being that's calmed and settled most of the time. And there's always a time for running away from, the runaway train. You don't become like insensitive or incapable of clicking on the sympathetic nervous response. It's always there for you. So your body will respond really quickly. But if you can reset that in any way you can, it's great. So you start to develop, this is what we call hygiene practices. And there's a whole series of teachings around hygiene, but sleep hygiene is one of the classical teachings on resetting your system. Sleep hygiene, eating hygiene are two of the most important ones. So yes, being calmed and settled when you eat, being calmed and settled when you get into and out of bed are golden. Yeah.
I do remember what I was going to say. So two things actually that I want to make, because I want to make sure, since there aren't any other questions right now, I want to throw two things at you.
Mhm.
One, when I started talking about Katie, and then I got distracted because I was promoting her little journey, which is cool, was we were talking about why is it that it's so hard to do these self-care practices? Like Katie didn't start doing them until it became like she committed to it as part of her job, and she would do it and write about it. And there's something about like once you sort of, I almost feel like I came to it because I had tried everything. I had no choice. I was like, I'll do whatever you say. I'm at the end of my rope. And I feel like it's like once you sort of, to me, it's almost like lighting a little pilot light, and then you start being aware of this warmth, and it grows and it feels so good. And then it's just this new habit, like you just start wanting to do it. But it's hard to do it if you aren't, I think you and I talked about like, slammed against the wall with no other option for some reason. And then, so I wanted to talk about starting a practice like that. And then it does develop momentum. But the other thing that I have found is really important that I think is relevant to this Soothed and Settled series in the middle of COVID and all the stuff that's going on is that I use a lot of your practices to release my emotions. So when I'm doing, where I lost my train of thought too, was that when I walk the dogs, if I'm feeling frustration or anger or fear, I'll sometimes shake or I'll groan or I'll do some of you have a bunch, you've like shaking practices and different practices that are actually, I guess you call them maybe more yang. So I thought that that's also an interesting thing for maybe you to share with people.
Yeah, so the first part, we call find your motivation. Like, what is your motivation to practice? So what we've done is essentially like in a micro level, we've gone through the entire what we call circle of teaching in this class. Your motivation for practice exists in your unmodified direct experience. That's where we started this session. So you just, okay, what's actually going on? What is my actual experience? Unless you have a homework assignment or something, like you're doing it for some specific reason, you're reviewing or whatever. But like if you're just talking about why would you do this in your own personal life, you just sit and don't modify your own experience and notice what's actually going on at the level of your somatic experience. What's actually going on? And the intelligence of your own body mind is communicating to you how it needs to be cared for, right? And English is wonky because we have this like very distinct separation between subject and object. So it appears that there's some you separate from your body in my speaking, but there isn't such a thing. Your direct experience is something that you're registering as an embodied being. But I just want to point that out. So you're not like standing apart from your body, like, what does this separate body thing need? Right? You're sensing as embodiment, but there's intelligence there, and it's not esoteric, right? So just to point out a few ways that that intelligence is totally moving you through your day. You start your day, and one of the things that gets you out of bed, it might be your alarm, but it's often your bladder, isn't it?
Mhm.
Right. So your bladder communicates what in highly refined English or Russian or German. No, it speaks the language of sensation, and that intelligence moves the whole organism toward the bathroom, right? And so there's something about your experience that's telling you what needs to happen. And then you feel hunger. Same thing when you feel cold. It works exactly the same way if you're feeling depressed or frazzled, or part of your body just has chronic tension. But you have to be able to hear that. That becomes the most potent and direct motivator for practicing self-care. And you keep in touch with that, and you keep tracking that. And you'll notice the less you listen to that, the harder it is to find motivation for practice and to know how to actually do it. And that's when we succumb to what I call form matching. That's when you're like, well, I guess I should just do the 26 poses that the guy's telling me to do, or whatever it is. You sort of do whatever it is that somebody outside of you, some expert, is telling you you should do, instead of listening to your own intelligence and responding accordingly. So that's the basis of what Dr. Rangel and I call innate medicine. That's the basis for a whole way of addressing the needs of a patient in a medical paradigm. That's the basis of self-care, and it puts you in touch with the thing that's moving you, and then you explore all of the methods for how to address that, and you start to get some continuity. And you could use discipline, and discipline has its place. I do recommend, if you're new to all of this, like, try it for 49 days. Try it for seven days a week for 7 weeks, 49 days. And every single day, reserve a chunk of time to actually practice in this way. But don't use the 49 days as like the reason for doing it. Use your own experience pulling you with interest and curiosity as the motivator, and you'll find things that can't be found in any book about how to adjust and use these techniques in the way that's really effective for you. And so you have the motivator, then you do the stuff, and then you see and feel the result. And that's what we've done today, right? Check in with your immediate experience. Now let's try some touch and some movement, some breathing and some sound. After each one of those, we registered the echo effect. Okay, what did that do? What did it feel like? You might be like, that didn't do anything for me. Then fine, let's try another technique, right? So you notice the impact that those things have, and that circles back around and prompts the motivation to continue to practice. And you can use that for your whole life, and essentially become a practitioner of self-care as just like an ordinary part of having a human experience, but really go to a profound level with that. And you could expand that 5 or 10 minutes to like numerous hours a day if you want to like do a kind of more deep dive in any of this, or go on a retreat and do like a week of deep work. Okay, so that's every other motivator I've found to kind of like fizzle out, in all honesty. And I've trained in, in the traditions that have really strong sort of ideas of motivators. But in the end, it's the one thing that's always there. It's your own experience, right? So, and it can, yeah, go
On
ahead.
that, so it's funny, I found both you and Myra through Deborah Silverstein's videos that she did
Oh, cool.
with you guys. And
Cool.
I've taken her classes. I've started to do astrology readings, and every time that I'm doing them, I get really strong, like chills, vibrations. And so I've always tried to do meditation. For those of you that do understand astrology, I have 7 planets in air, and that makes me like very airy. But I'm curious, is there a particular practice or all combined? Have you seen people kind of being able to channel one way or another? Is it really personal? It just really depends? Or is there anything particular that you feel like I want to harness it more? I want to figure out how to really bring it, how to kind of bring the intuition, potentially psychic abilities towards, giving readings so that it really is moving for people.
Okay. Yeah. So specific practices, one to help round out your own astrological constitution, and also help you perform the role of astrologer.
Well, but also the channeling of, like, I feel like I'm starting to get, like, I get really intense chills, getting them right at the moment, when something is like dead on or it feels right. And so figuring out how to kind of like channel that a little bit better. So almost more psychic or channeling. And is there a particular way to do, like, any suggestions on that you've ever seen that people do channel, and like how to do that? Or is it again just kind of personal?
Yeah. So there is something universal about it. So with that, we have to actually ground into something very physically tangible. Otherwise, what will happen is a kind of dispersal, right? And so utilizing the movements and sounds that go down, which is part of what we emphasize today. Most of the things we did today had a quality of either from out to in or from up to down. And the reason for that is because we are having the quality of condensing, solidifying lower in the body, because that's where the feeling of safety and rootedness comes from. When we get really scared or startled, or we're going into like our psychic antennas are out, we tend to go up and out and widen. And you can have access to all kinds of information there, whether you're a hypervigilant child, like sensing the environment, wondering if everybody's gonna start an argument in your space, or you're an astrologer or a psychic, like you're using your hairs and you're expanding out to feel and sense. If you do that too much without grounding, you'll become dispersed. Your nervous system will be frazzled. You'll be spaced out. You become more susceptible to autoimmune stuff. And it's why often people who do a lot of that either overeat or smoke. It's very common in that industry, because you're looking for grounding. Got to get that grounding, right? So, and we can all utilize this. If you work in an environment where there's a lot of stuff moving around, or like you live in New York and you're traveling on the subway, like there's a lot of psychic stuff flying around. We all need to ground, right? So, the sound goes down into your belly. You could do that for 5 minutes before you do a reading. Self-touch is right from the outside in. You could use, today we did really light touch, but if you wanted to work more on grounding, we would do compression. So go from the skin into the bones, and with a strong compression. So I'm feeling like my bones are solid and my body has this heavy solidity to it. So that'll counteract and actually strengthen the more subtle aspect of our intelligence, right? So it's not gonna like take away at all. It's like if you have expanded psychic capacity and you add grounding, you just have more capacity, right? So that's always, if you do that kind of work, you have to have a really solid practice of grounding for your career. Otherwise, it's really easy to burn out.
Cain, that reminded me, one of the earliest things I learned from you to share with everyone is, for me, the Holocaust is like the koan of my life. Like, how can this be a good world if the Holocaust happened, if that much cruelty and murder? And one of the things that you really, and everything, people lose young children, horrible abuse, all the horrible things in the world. And you said to me, it relates to Melissa's question, your mind can't process it, your heart can't handle it. It is your belly that has to digest it. You're never going to solve that with your mind, you know. And I just think that, and that goes back to what I said earlier on with the don't worry about a thing, every little thing's going to be all right. You know, how your mind knows that's not really true, but to live a healthy life, your body has to go back to that feeling of being safe, respond to a threat or stress, and then go back. So I wonder, just, we have like 3 more minutes. If, you know, if there's not any other pressing questions, maybe you could talk about that a little bit, if that feels relevant.
Yeah, definitely. Does I just got chills when you said your belly has to digest it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So let's just stay on that topic, because that's really central. Melissa just wrote, I just got chills when you said your belly has to digest it. And this is what I meant in the beginning, where I was saying, whatever it is that we experience, it actually has to be processed by the body. We could use the terminology digestion. It has to be digested, assimilated, and then completed in the elimination process, right? And the elimination process is that your experience has been fully assimilated, and then you have some kind of release of whatever it is that is the residual constituent parts. That's all going on, you know, in this area of the body in correspondence with the lungs, right? So our lungs sit above the diaphragm, and of course they're doing the respiratory piece, and then the diaphragm is going, as we breathe in, the diaphragm goes down like that. As it goes down like that, it presses the belly out a little bit and expands. And so we digest through breathing, circulation, and assimilation and elimination. And the body has to do that. So we emphasize freeing and supporting the parts of our embodiment that allow that to happen. It doesn't happen at the level of conceptual manipulation. You can't think your way out of an emotional experience, right? It's a full body mind process. So we employ some mental understanding and some conceptual understanding in such a way that we can allow the body to more elegantly process whatever it is that is going on. And ultimately, it's the center of the belly that we have that assimilation, and then it goes out into the large intestine, and then we have elimination. And then, just simply because this, I'm pointing at my navel, this navel point is where we used to be connected to mom through the umbilical cord, and she did all the breathing, eating, assimilating, and eliminating for us. That our belly is for our whole life, you know, and our 9 months in utero, and then our whole life post birth. Our belly is the center of all of that. And so if we can emphasize that in all of our practices, we aid the body's ability to move through experiences with less and less unresolved residue, whether that's emotional or mental or physical. So this works at the level of, like, if you twisted your ankle and your body is still like in this response, and your belly's all, you know, knotted up, your body won't heal that ankle as effectively. It works at the level of a simple physical injury, or at the level of like a deep emotional injury from childhood. So I would say, as part of every practice, connect to the feeling sensation of the belly, and become more belly centric, if you will, like living from center, literally the center of gravity in your body. And this has a very profound calming and soothing effect on your nervous system through your daily life, and will literally improve your digestion and assimilation and elimination of food, but of life.
Well, it's 11:31, and I mean, Cain, I feel so lucky to have worked with you and Josefa for over 2 years now. I know this was so, you know, trying to give people a little bit of a taste of your work. has been a real honor and pleasure for me. And we do have all these resources on our site. We also have a lot of your guided meditations on our site. And then we'll send out this recording, and then sometime after that, we will send out some custom videos that you're going to make for everyone who signed up. And then we'll circle back. Like I said, there was over 100 people that signed up that didn't show up that are going to be getting the video. And if there's interest out there, you know, we would love to do a little series for people. And we'll see if people are interested in that.
Yeah, let us know, you guys. We definitely take our inspiration from what you guys are wanting to learn about. And so if there's a lot of interest in it, then it's inspiring for us, you know, that feeling of like, you know, if you're asking for it, we know it's interesting. So then we'll put together something that feels like it serves what you guys are wanting to learn about. A few notes coming through. Oh, you're welcome, Ruthie. Great to be with you.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. I'm getting some private messages. I want to thank everyone for showing up, and thank you so much, Cain Carroll, and thank you, Allison, for being our tech gal. And we'll say goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for hosting this, Myra. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. It was fabulous. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.